If you're aiming for a band 6 in HSC Biology or any of your other content heavy subjects, it's not only just about working harder, but also about working with smarter strategies to help you reach that goal. So, in this session, we're going to break down exactly how my students go from average to top marks using real techniques that actually work. So, let's dive right into it.
I find overall that the biggest reasons why people struggle in biology is either that you are studying, you think you're studying hard, but you're not seeing the results at the end of the exam, or maybe you are doing okay but it's taking too much time for you to get those marks. So the real problem is that using passive study techniques. So you'll feel like you are studying, but it's actually not giving you the results, or it's not working when it comes to sitting your assessments and doing exams. So this includes anything like if you're writing notes and for your study for exams, if you're just rewriting notes again and again, if you're just highlighting the textbook or watching videos or rereading the textbook again and again and hoping that all this information is just going to stick and it'll come out in the exam. So while in the moment you are understanding things, you feel like you are doing it, but it's actually, when it comes to the exam, it's hard for you to actually recall all the information. So however you are studying feels comfortable, it feels easy when you're doing it, and it's nice and easy, then it's probably not effective when it comes to your exams. And the way that you should be studying instead is active recall. And there's many different ways to do it. There's no like one answer and one way. So feel free to figure out what works for you. You don't need to be following exactly what I've said, but the concept stays the same. So if I ask all my students I've got in band 6, there will be some sort of common aspect to it with active recall. So there's 3 steps: understanding, recall, and applying whenever it comes to learning your content. So understand, first step. So before you even get to remembering it, you need to understand it. And that includes, so before you start at your topic, you need to figure out the scope. So you should be using your syllabus and pulling that out when you're revising to check and mark what you have learned. Your goal should be then to focus on the ones that you find hardest and weakest and spend your time doing that rather than just keep going over things that you know. So use it as a checklist while you're studying before you start the topic. And when you are done with the topic, I would really suggest doing a mind map of the syllabus dot points. And you almost have to remember the syllabus as well as the content. So yes, you need to know all the content as you learn it, but you should also actually memorize the syllabus. I'll talk about that in the next slides and show you what I mean by that. And another thing would be to teach a friend or a parent. So even if they don't understand what you are talking about, I used to just give my notes to my mom or my dad, and I would just start like recalling information. They might give me the heading or the question, and I'll start saying it. And even if they don't know what I'm talking about, I'll look back at my notes and be like, wait, I forgot this. So I need to go over it again. So if you can explain it to someone, even if it's no one, or if you're just saying it out loud alone, that's honestly one of the best ways for you to revise and recall content. So even when I ask you in class questions, sometimes it's hard to find the words to answer it, right? But the more that you keep talking, whether it's to yourself or to someone else, it will come out naturally. And if you can say it out loud naturally, then you can write it when it comes to explaining your answers clearly. And that's the quickest way for you to do it, talking it out loud. So as well as what I just said, I talked about mind maps, and this is an example of a mind map, let's say for section 1. So I've just dissected every component of it. And when you look at this, you actually realize, yes, I actually need to know all of this. So if we look at it, right, I divided it into types of mutations. I wrote point and chromosomal, then I divided point mutations into base and frame shift, and I divided it further and further. And let's say I even did this for mutagens, so electromagnetic, chemical, natural occurring, but then I wrote the examples that I need to know, because it's so easy for you to get caught up when you're in the term, you're learning the micro content, like you're learning in lesson 1, you're learning genetic drift, and then you're learning recombinant DNA technology in module 6. So you get so used to learning it in detail that once you're done with the topic, it's also important for you to get a little overview of it, because it will tell you which, when you're doing questions, you need to know which syllabus dot points do I need to bring into this question, because not everything you need to be dumping, right? And if you guys remember last lesson, I asked these questions all the time. I asked, what are 3 sources of genetic variation? And a lot of people don't know this because, and this is just simply from the syllabus. It's not even a question otherwise. It's one of the syllabus dot points, which is explain or investigate the causes of genetic variation relating to the processes of fertilization, meiosis, and mutation. So that's the syllabus dot point, and you need to know them. Because if you get asked about the broad concept there, you actually need to be referencing all 3 points that they're expecting. And once again, I also asked, what are the 3 factors affecting the gene pool? That's your answers in the syllabus, not even in the textbook when it comes to this. So it's mutations, gene flow, genetic drift, and for genetic drift, we have bottleneck and founder. And I split that up. So having a visual like that already kind of breaks the concepts down for you. It makes it so much easier. And you need to, when you're studying, make sure you've hit every single point there and know you know this. And so we did this, you've probably seen this one for past, present, future. That's practically what your summary is for section 2. And then for section 3, I've got this over here. So you need to know what are reproductive technologies, for example, versus if you get asked a biotechnology. So this mind map again will help you differentiate that. So I recommend doing that for all of the topics, do all the sections, and even if you want to use a bigger paper and have it all in one, maybe things connect, module 5, module 6 connect, for example, then this is a great way. And even redo the mind map before the exam or something, so you know that you actually remember it. Now, recalling. So just want to know who writes notes here. There's no like, I'm not gonna like shame you. Oh my God, you don't write it, or there's no judgment. And you don't have to actually. It's not even a compulsory thing. So I want to know actually, do you write notes? You? Kind of? I know people that don't even write notes, and you don't need to. Limit, you type them, right? What about you, Fiona? And what about you, Carl? Type them. Okay. And then do you guys, are they very detailed, or is it just you just take bits and pieces of content? What do you do? Okay, good. And then just the main things? Mm. Mm. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, that's good. What about you, Nimit?
So 50-50.
50-50? Yeah. Fiona? Detailed? What about you?
I like insert by understanding
Yeah.
my version of the content.
Okay, that's really good. So your goal with notes, it's not, some people don't even use them, but the goal isn't, when you're writing it out, that's not your 100% assurance that, yes, I'm going to remember, like, me writing it is going to equal me remembering all of this. But the goal for you with notes is you're trying to filter out the textbook information or whatever your source is down to exactly what you need for the syllabus. Because the textbook will have more information than you actually need for the HSC. And I think that's one of the harder bits of biology, I guess, is if there's no guidance with what's actually needed for the exam, then the textbook is an overload of information. So your goal should be, for each dot point that you have as your heading, you need to filter it down to what you exactly need. And the idea of writing notes even is to set yourself up for active recall. What I mean by that is that every single heading essentially becomes a question. So even when you're giving your notes to someone else and you're saying it out loud to them, the notes are essentially your headings and your questions that you need to be able to recall back. So we don't just reread, highlight, and rewrite your notes. So does anyone do that right now? That's fine. Yes. Do you do that? You do? You do that? Rereading it and highlighting and rewriting it just before your exam as a way to remember it. What do you do?
So now it's like I just like butter.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, it's like that.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Shreya? Yes.
Sometimes I would
Mhm.
write
Do you then say them out loud, or do you just go to answering past paper? Which is good. Yeah. So what's your way to know that you remembered it? I'm just genuinely curious. Explain to your friends. What about you, Fiona? You write it out. Okay. So, and I'll explain. There is a part where writing is fine as well. I'll explain what I mean. So your goal should be to make either your own notes, or if you're coming to the weekly lessons, you use the weekly note handouts, and you should cover each heading and be able to recall the information. And if you're wrong, you need to relearn or reword it and do it again. If you're right, then you move on. That way you're targeting what you actually need to do. So, for example, this is just from the weekly handout. This is actually next lesson. Innate immunity, for example. So you need to make sure your notes are answering a syllabus dot point, and you need to make sure they're very clear and concise and to the point. Like, you don't want just chunks of information from textbook or whatever it is there. Or if it is there, then you should just be able to recall it when you are saying it out loud or writing it in a very concise way, to the point. And then your goal, when you cover it, so if you're using the weekly notes, if you cover the content under the question or under each heading, you should be able to recall the information in whatever way it is. If it's you saying it out loud, it can even be you writing it out loud. But when I say writing, I don't mean that I'm just copying the definition. I'm copying like the notes of innate immunity I have on this sheet and just writing it out again and again. I mean that if you are writing it, you're kind of covering it, writing it, seeing if it's matched or if there's anything missing in there. So make sure if you're writing your notes, make them concise. The point is for you to do this active recall. And whenever you're getting things wrong, you've relearned, try saying it again or understanding it again. If you know it, then you move on. And that's how you study when it comes to, especially the last moments in your exam. And another thing is part of why we do all of this. So this is what you call the forgetting curve. So let's say you learn something today, then by tomorrow, students will forget up to 70% of the new information within 24 hours. So that's just the fact, that's just science and how your retention and memory will work. But there's a way that we combat it, which we call through spaced repetition. So you can combat and beat the curve if you just revisit the content just as you're about to forget it. And there's actually specific days and markers I'll mention that will be your pointers for when you should be doing your revision. So the more that you do it at these specific marks, it essentially gets engraved in a way to your long-term memory. And then when it comes to your exam time, you've already remembered the concepts stuck in your head, and it won't require as much effort as it does at the end for you to be remembering everything. So if you're doing this continuously, as much as like being consistent feels like it's a chore and it's like, oh, it's wasting my time right now if I'm doing this. But I'm even saying 5 to 10 minutes of review at these specific intervals. Like I'll tell you, a day, a week, etc. It will just save you so much time in the long run. And just like, for example, stuff that you might know from when you're younger, years ago, it's become ingrained in your memory, long-term memory now. You can use these things for you to do it now with the content you're learning now, today, for you to quickly be able to kind of put it into your long-term memory. So this is what you call built-in repetition. So it's reviewing content after a day, a week, or a month later after learning it. So let's say that you learned mutations on May 1st. Then the next day, what you should do is review the content, try and do active recall, 5 to 10 minutes. That's all it is. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect, day one. Then a week later, you should revise it, try a few questions, and then a month later, it will be your final check, and it will be like stuck in your head. And I'll tell you a technique you can use with your calendars for you to organize this. Secondly, if you're doing and joining the term classes, then we know that I have the weekly quizzes. So that's already your 1 week marker. So if you're learning the content, review it the next day. At 1 week, I always give that 10-minute quiz. And the goal of the quiz is not even me asking application-based questions. It's going to be just spitting the content, right? And if you're already able to answer those confidently, then you're automatically in that band 6 category. But if you're not able to, then it's hard for you to get to band 6, because first part of you doing well in bio is knowing the content before you even know how to apply it. So if you're able to do that every week, you've already done your check of 1 week, and you just need to be able to do that 1 month later recall. But what will also help is doing it revision the day after you learn something. So, and the last thing is flashcards. So this isn't necessarily just a tool that you can use. So does anyone use flashcards? You do? You just do the ones that you like specific concepts you need it for, or do you do it for the whole topic? Examples. Okay, that's good. So yeah, use it for whatever you need, whether it's the whole topic or specific things. Anki, if you've heard of that, that's a good software. Or you can use Google Sheets as well, and there's a whole way to do it. If you want to know, I can talk about that. But this is space repetition, like a planner. So even if you don't do this exact thing, I love using a calendar to break down a larger deadline into smaller tasks. So what you can do, you can just start putting events into your calendar. So let's say you're meant to recall the day after, just chuck in recall bio lesson 1 tomorrow. And then you put it for 1 week later and put it for 1 month later. And well, if you think about it, these are just 5-10 minutes each. This should just take 30 minutes, for example. So set reminders, tick them off as you go, and essentially, as you approach a day, you already have a little system in place. So you're not even wasting time deciding what to do. You just have something set up for you. And this can be for learning content and for your other subjects too. But I definitely also use this when it comes to assessments and exams. So if there's a large essay or whatever it is, I set myself fake deadlines. So I'll say by next week, I need 500 words, whatever it is. Or if it's an exam, I'll say I need to learn this section by this week. Or if it's maths, I'll say these chapters by this date. And I actually religiously use this, especially throughout school and also in uni and in HSC as well. So I planned out my whole month saying, okay, by this week, I made large deadlines. And then by then I had a plan for every day. How do I get to that large deadline? I need to do this every day for me to get to this weekly goal, monthly goal, whatever it is for every topic. And I think, yeah, definitely you should be planning like this. No, it doesn't have to be exactly like this. I'm saying that you can try this out, but I'm just saying in general, you should plan out fake deadlines for yourself. And the last step is applying. So knowing content is half the work, but the other half is actually able to apply it. So we did questions today, right? And it's like, yes, you need to remember the content, but there's so much technique as well when it comes to these questions. And if you get a hang of the formula of answering the different styles, then you have set yourself up when it comes to answering and doing your exams. So do timed answers. So for biology, 1 mark is 1.8 minutes. So if you even want to do 1 or 2 questions at a time, you can time yourself for it. Practice your questions weekly so they don't pile up at the end. If you do 1 question even every week, you have already done more than if you just didn't do it. So by the end of the term, you'll have 10 big questions done, whatever it is. So again, if you're doing the weekly, make sure you do the homework that I set out for the weekly questions. Because you're just learning, getting feedback as you go with it. And focus on your questions per dot point, so making sure you're covering everything. And now the last bit is I had a student last year he had 68% around this time last year, and then he got 94. And I asked him for tips as to what he did. So I asked him recently for what he did last year. And I actually didn't tell him, I didn't have this like content prepared for him, but he actually followed the same stuff. So this is honestly the way to do it. And you'll have your own ways, and you'll see when he does it in his own way as well. So first thing he did, understanding the content. So he said, During the HSC, I used your notes and handwritten summaries I created through what my teacher provided to read the material for a specific dot point. So once again, dot point by dot point, you need to understand. Second, so he did writing, but again, it was in a way that was active recall and testing. So he would try to write out what he could remember onto a piece of paper, and then he used a different colored pen to fill in what he didn't remember. So literally, as I mentioned, you're filling in the gaps with what you don't remember, or you're attempting it again. And he would repeat this for each inquiry question. And this is specifically, I think, for HSC prep. So he would try to do one inquiry question a day, and he had a buddy system with his friends as well to keep accountable. That's actually a really good way to do it. And then afterwards, he applied, he did past trial papers, and the day before the HSC, he didn't do anything other than just targeted practice for things he was weak at. So that's the point you want to get to at the end. You don't want to be learning anything. You just want to be doing the little final touch-ups. But the message here, he said the biggest takeaway for him was being consistent with the work throughout the year and work under exam conditions. So he would always be giving me questions to mark. And that's, I think, what helped him continuously develop at the end. You just need to be doing questions all the time, getting feedback. And you don't fall behind that way. Even if it is, oh, I'm busy this week, I'm going to do one question. That's fine as well. You just need to stay consistent. So next, I didn't set an exam for this session, which was what I initially planned. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to email that mock exam to you guys. It's 1 hour long, so time yourself. And just email me your answers by next week, Thursday, if you want to receive any feedback. So feel free, if you want to write it out, and if you can type it, it will be best for me to then like mark it line by line if I'm doing it online. Or if I'm able to get the physical copy, then I can mark it handwritten as well. That'll be the easiest way for me to do it. And then the weekly sessions resume next week. So we'll be continuing with the module 7 or up to like innate immunity as well. And if you do want to join, then just message me and I can send through class times as well for that. But other than that, we're all done for today.